Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and this is the second part of an ongoing video series about building furniture you can be proud of without a shop full of expensive tools, or even a dedicated workshop at all for that matter. In our last video, we built a bookshelf with strong but easy to create joinery and a clever secret compartment on top, if I do say so myself. This time we'll build a washer and dryer pedestal for the laundry room that beats any of the store-bought versions out there in every way possible. And to do it, all you'll need is some easy-to-find materials which you can get from a home center, a circular saw with a good blade, and an edge guide like this one that I'm using to make straight cuts. With the tips and the tricks you'll learn in this video and others we'll be completing in this series in the coming weeks, you'll be surprised what you can build with minimal tools. If you look in the description below this video by clicking on that little arrow if you're on the app, or on Show More if you're on YouTube on a computer, you'll find links to a set of project plans with the dimensions and other information that you'll need for this particular project, as well as links to other resources that are going to help you out along the way. So let's get started. I recommend good quality plywood. Now, if your washer and dryer is in the basement where no one's ever going to see it but you might use sanded pine for this project and save some money. But I still recommend springing for the 3/4 inch birch veneer plywood that you can get at home centers. It'll be flatter, more stable, and it's going to give you a smoother surface to paint later. I do not recommend MDF for this project. It's just not going to hold together well enough to support the tremendous weight of the equipment on top. To ensure crisp, chip-free cuts, I'm using a 60-tooth blade, which I set to cut just through my plywood and into the supporting sheet of OSB on the sawhorses beneath. With an edge guide setup like the Bora WTX system that I use, all of your parts will come out straight and square just like you cut them on a table saw. For this project, I'm using full extension ball bearing drawer slides because they will allow me to fill the drawers with a ton of weight. I always mount my slides by measuring to the center, which is usually 7/8 of an inch. Then I add the distance I want the slide from the edge of the panel, in this case it's 1 inch, and I strike a line on my workpiece at that point. Now it's easy to align the center of the slide's mounting holes on that line by eye as I drive the screws. And by working with that same center measurement, I can be sure that all my slides will be positioned in the same place. On the project plans, these are panels C1, C2, F1, and F2. Note how the drawer slides are mounted on opposite sides to create two sets that are mirror images of each other. This is important, as you'll soon see. This cabinet may look like a simple box with drawers in it, but it was carefully engineered to transfer the massive weight of the washer and dryer on top to specific areas that are designed to manage that weight. This was done with a layering technique that may require a bit more plywood, but it's going to pay off in the end. These screws aren't necessary for strength. They just eliminate the need for clamps while the glue dries. You won't see them on this inner divider once the project's assembled. These are panels F1 and F2 in the project plans. Remember how the slides were mounted to be mirror images of each other? This way, they extend in the same direction once the panels are laminated together back to back. The other two panels with slides are laminated to slightly larger panels to create the beginnings of the joinery that makes this cabinet so strong. On the right are panels C1 and D1, and panels C2 and D2 are on the left. Again, take note of how they are mirror images of each other, both in the position of the rabbets that were created by the lamination, and in the position of the drawer slides mounted earlier. To attach the rear panel to one of these newly laminated sides, I first mark where the rabbet is with a pencil so I can be sure I'm boring my pilot hole in the edge of the inner layer. And I'm using screws that are at least 2 inches or a little bit longer because that's going to give me a little extra strength. Again, these won't be seen in the finished project because this is the back. To align the inner divider, I've drawn a line down the center of the back panel which I align with the seam between the two layers of my divider. Now I'm using pairs of screws because a single screw driven right into the center line might split the two layers of the divider apart, especially if the glue isn't completely dry. Because I don't want to see the screw heads on the outer sides of the cabinet, I use pocket holes to insert the bottom panels, which are labeled G1 and G2 in the project plans. You don't need a fancy pocket hole jig for this. I use a cheap portable one here, And you could even bore pocket holes by hand just by angling your drill. We have a video about that on our YouTube channel. These aren't weight-bearing panels. They're just designed to keep the whole unit square by the strength of their shape, not by the screws holding them in place. The real strength of this cabinet is in these two 2x4 supports underneath. The two sides and the inner divider rest directly on these supports, transferring the weight of the entire unit, everything you pack inside, and the washer and dryer that sit on top, right down to these thick supports. A kick plate's attached with pocket screws to cover the 2x4 supports. Again, you don't need a pocket hole jig for this. You can use glue and some finishing nails to attach it without ugly screw heads showing on the outside. I created this recess in the bottom so I can install wheels that would be concealed in the finished project. I think wheels are important because it will make it easier to just pull the whole unit, washer and dryer and all, out should you need to access the back, which chances are you will. However, it turned out that these casters I'm using weren't really large enough for all the weight, even with 6 of them installed. So I recommend upgrading to good 4-inch casters instead. Up to this point, we've been working upside down. Time to flip it over and install the top. I also installed some strips of clear pine on the front to cover the plywood edges. If you don't have a pneumatic nailer like I'm using, you can use finishing nails and a hammer and just cover the heads with a little putty later. To cover the plywood edges that are still exposed on the sides of the cabinet, I applied some iron-on edge banding. For some tips on edge banding, check out the video from our bookshelf project. The drawers are simple boxes. You can see how they're assembled in the plans. The inner portion of the drawer slides are just mounted right along the bottom edge of the drawer side panels. Before inserting the drawers, I put a spacer inside the cabinet so that the drawer boxes won't slide all the way in. This is going to make it easier to attach the drawer fronts with double-sided tape, aligning the margins by eye. Then you can hook your finger underneath on the drawer box itself to pull the drawer back out rather than pulling on that loosely taped drawer front, which is going to come off. Once screws are installed to permanently mount the drawer fronts, that spacer can come out. Use good, durable paint for a project like this. I usually like Sherwin-Williams. It's likely to take some abuse over the years, so you want something that's going to really hold up. Unlike the store-bought versions of these washer and dryer cabinets, this unit is less expensive, even if you use good plywood. It has a lot more storage capacity because of its design, and it is built to last a lifetime. Who says you can't get track saw quality cuts from a simple circular saw? Boratool's new WTX clamp edge guide system is light, it's easily portable, and it's far less expensive. And with the optional router and jigsaw attachments, the system's more versatile too. Check it out at the link in the notes below this video. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.